Welcome to my channel. In this video I will be working in the book by Jade Summer, but also I will be answering very interesting coloring tag. It's dedicated to creative crisis and some problems which you can encounter when you color. Maybe I will divide it into two parts. First, let me tell you what exactly I am coloring here. I have this Art Nouveau book by Jade Summer and I already colored just one page here. You know that I have mixed feeling about Jade Summer books. I own three of them and I do love art style, but I am not a huge fan of quality. You know how much I hate this black background and paper is thin and soft. For myself, I decided that for the background, I will try to use my alcohol-based markers. At least it's a quick way to fill in background areas, and then on the details I will switch to colored pencils. But here, even when I colored with alcohol-based markers, I had some problems. When I did first part of the background, the night sky, and when I worked with dark blue, everything wasn't bad. Of course, I protected the rest of the book, putting a piece of cardstock beneath my page to protect the rest of the book from bleeding, and it wasn't bad. At least it was quick to do bigger part of the background. But then when I started to work with light colors like peach, pastel yellow and cream for the sand and for the pyramids, I hated this paper even more because when you apply alcohol-based marker first couple of minutes you can see only black throughout the page because of the alcohol. Paper becomes wet, so it's not very pleasant feeling. You can't see color, and only after couple of minutes when paper becomes dry again, then you can decide do you like color which you put. So with pastel colors it was a problem to color here, but alcohol-based markers helped me to do the frame here and to do the night sky. As my pencils for this page I selected Arteza and I added only couple of polychromoses and Star Joy pencils. On this paper all pencils work not very well, but Arteza they were able to cover paper with just couple of layers, and if needed I used my blender to cover paper more thoroughly. So let's talk about creative crisis. Question number 1. Did you have a creative crisis when you did not pick up coloring pages for a long time? Well, I have already colored for more than 4 years, and I think that I was quite fortunate that yet I hadn't met this coloring crisis. I don't think that when I don't want to color for one day or two, I can call it a crisis. But for a longer time, such that I wouldn't want to color for weeks, for now I hadn't yet such problems, and I think that it's a good thing. But you know that I try to be quite careful. When I feel that I start to get tired from coloring, that it became something more mechanical for me, that I start to repeat myself, or that I start to color quicker without putting all my efforts into page, it's a sign for me, it's a signal for me that I need a short break. And that's when I switch to my other hobbies, reading or cross stitching or spending time with my family in more active way, or simply doing nothing like watching TV. And I force myself to do such breaks for 2 days, for 3 days, and after such short breaks I return to coloring with much more inspiration and with much more passion to coloring. I definitely feel that I started to miss coloring again and that I am ready to start new, more challenging projects. So quite often I force myself to do such short breaks. So I really try to be careful in order to prevent to have full-blown creative crisis. I really don't want to have it. So the next question is, are you afraid that over time the creative crisis may overtake you? Yes, I would say that I wouldn't want to have creative crisis, but not as a colorist. If I simply wouldn't want to color, it's not such a problem. I have plenty of other hobbies which will help me to spend my free time in quite good and quality way. I can do cross stitching, I can read, I can do many other things, or I can even try many other hobbies which I want to try, many other crafts which I wanted to try for a long time already. So as a person, I'm not afraid. But you know that I'm blogger and I take my blogging quite seriously. I have my duties here on YouTube and I have my duties on Patreon platform. So if I have coloring crisis, I won't be able to create videos about coloring, and that's where I really start to be afraid to have full creative crisis. That's why I try to be really careful and listen to myself and not to overdo with coloring in order to protect my creativity for a longer period of time. So yes and no. I can't say that idea of stopping coloring terrifies me, but I wouldn't want to do it because I also love to do videos. I love to be a blogger, so that's why I wouldn't want to have coloring crisis. Do you think that a creative crisis is a stage for further development, or it's a signal that you have lost your way? Well, negative in both ways. Definitely don't think that creative crisis is a stage for further development. I don't think that I wouldn't receive something beneficial, something good from creative crisis. But it's also, I can't say that I lost my way. It's too serious. You have to remember that coloring is simply our hobby. For me, a creative crisis is simply a sign of overloading. It's a signal for myself that I started to dedicate too much of my free time, too much of my minds, my thoughts to this hobby, to this process, to coloring, and that maybe I need to switch to something else for some time. I felt similar symptoms couple of times when I had some totally free days, some holidays, and I colored a lot. And after a couple of such days, I felt that I don't want to look at my coloring books at all, so I really felt overloaded. I try to be careful. I try to make breaks. I try to not to think over my coloring too much, to think about it very seriously. I always remind myself that it's for my relaxation, that it's for my free time. And when I start to feel overloaded, too busy with coloring, too pressed with my thoughts about coloring, for me it's a sign that I have to make short break to think about my other hobbies, my other duties, other things in my life. So I try to be quite careful. I can't say that I'm very stressed from the idea of not coloring for a long time. I already have similar experience. My first and more important hobby was cross stitching, and after I dedicated to this hobby maybe 6 or 8 years, then I started to feel that I almost completely lost my interest and that size of my cross stitching work it reduced immensely. Now, from time to time, I still enjoy doing cross-stitch works, but I can combine it now for with other hobbies, and I never feel guilty or somehow worried that I don't touch my coloring projects for several months or I hadn't stitched anything for a couple of years also. So I know what it means to have some kind of crisis, but again, in the same time, I simply switched to other hobbies, so it wasn't full-time creative crisis. I simply changed between hobbies, so I am not worried that if one day I will lose desire to color, then I think that I simply will find another hobby. As a blogger, I definitely don't want to have such situation, at least for now. I still enjoy doing videos and to color, but I don't think that even if it happen one day that it will press me really hard and somehow it will affect quality of my life and quality of my free time. Number 4. Is social media contributing to creative crisis due to the huge amount of work by other users from all over the world? I would say yes. I had similar experience. First of all, I would say that looking and participating in social media, Instagram and particularly Facebook, it takes huge amount of your free time. Sometimes I spend hour just looking at Facebook groups at new posted works and then I think you could color your own coloring books in that time and now you spend the whole hour just watching. Sometimes it's good because I love to get inspiration from other colorists' works, but sometimes it's difficult to find balance when you need to stop watching and you need to stop coloring by yourself. So that's one reason. And the second, it's what I call I have colored it with my eyes. I had such experience with the books by Hannah Carson. In the very beginning, I purchased her first two books, but I had only budget pencils and I wanted to purchase Prismacolors. And while I was saving for my first set of Prismas, I was waiting. I hadn't colored in these books because I wasn't happy how my budget pencils behaved, but I looked at the works by other colorists. And at the moment when I got my first set, I was so overwhelmed by the level of the others' work that I hadn't touched my Hannah Carson's book for some time, maybe for 6 months, until I started to feel more confident. The same thing goes to the Земля снова by Tomislav Tomic. I already saw so many beautiful works that when I want to start another project in Земля снова, I am always afraid that everything I do it will be like repeating by some other works which I seen and which are subconsciously I remember somewhere and that I will be copying as a colorist even without realizing it. Just because I saw those works, I was impressed, and now I am afraid to start something from myself. That's why to color in a villain sun is much easier for me. And the same problem I have with Kerber Razanes. With all his newest books, like Mythomorphia, like A Word Within Words, they were published, they became quite popular. Everyone started to color them, started to post videos. And when I got my own books, I was so overwhelmed with all the works which I have already seen that I realized that I don't feel ready to do them myself. Either I lost my inspiration, I even hadn't purchased Mythomorphia book, and with A Word Within Words, I still think that I need some time until I will forget all those works which I have already seen. So, yeah, for me it's a big problem. Sometimes I even feel that it's too much for me to that again I am overwhelmed by others' work that I leave some of the Facebook groups. I think that now I participate only in couple of them where I post my works, where I admire works by other people, but I really try to limit my activity and to limit time which I spend there. Another bad thing which I noticed in social media is that when beginner colorists they started to post comments like you all are coloring so good and my level is so low, I never will be able to color like you, so I won't be coloring at all, and it's definitely not a good thing. I never had such problems. I always was confident that with time, with practice, with trying to find things which I can do, trying to find things which I can get from other colors, that I will be improving my level. So I never was discouraged. But unfortunately, I saw a lot of comments from other people that they were really discouraged to start their own coloring hobby and that they forgot that it's hobby, that it's for pleasure. They started to lose this pleasure because they were intimidated by other works. I definitely don't want such thing to happen to anyone. This impact of social media, it can totally destroy the idea of coloring as a pleasant hobby, of spending your free time with pleasure, that you stop to think about relaxation, you start to compare yourself with other people, you start to compete with other skills level, and that's definitely not a right way how to think about coloring. So I would say that if you participate in social media, Instagram or Facebook group, if you feel that you get inspiration from other colors, that you feel joy from sharing your hobby with other people, then it's okay. But if you start to feel that you are pressed, that you start to feel intimidated, then definitely stop to look at Facebook groups on Instagram profiles and start to color. So I do believe that spending a lot of time in social media can be one of the steps to creative crisis. Number 5. If your favorite blogger author stops posting his videos, pictures because of the creative crisis, will you provide him with moral support in the form of comments or letters, messages, or you will prefer to keep silent, believing that these are quite personal experiences, personal feelings, and that they should not be disturbed? Number 5. If your favorite blogger, author, stops posting his videos, photos because of the creative crisis, will you provide him with moral support in the form of comments, messages, letters, or you prefer to keep silent, believing that these are deeply personal feelings and experience and that people should not be disturbed? Well, it's a tough question. You know that I have several favorite bloggers like Peter Hewitt, like Shirley, and unfortunately they stopped to post videos, to post pictures, and indeed you have some doubts of what to do in such cases. Of course, you want to leave comments, you want your favorite blogger or author to let them know how much you appreciate their efforts, their art, their time which they invested into creating pictures or videos, but in the same time, we have to remember that coloring is just a hobby and probably it takes maybe 1/20th of all our time, and that real life is much more important, and you can't say what is going with the real life of the person and how your comment will be uh, accepted by the blogger. I think that I would leave one or two comments under videos that we appreciate, we are waiting for your return, we love your art, but just one or two in order not to be very pressing to the blogger. I don't want my favorite blogger to feel obliged to answer me, to explain what happening and why he or she stopped to post pictures or videos. So I don't want to press more if person has some kind of crisis. I think that one comment, it's a good thing to remind the blogger, but I definitely won't be sending letters or personal messages via Instagram. For me, it's not acceptable. It's a break of personal borders, so definitely not such things, just a comment and that's all. I will be hoping that all my favorite bloggers that they will return, but as I said, I know that real life is much more important and coloring it's just a hobby and we can't sacrifice all other important things in order to post more videos or post more pictures. So I simply hope that all the artists which I love, they won't be having creative crisis, or it will be very brave and that they will return to us. Well, surprisingly, the video is almost over and the list of questions is quite long, so I think that I will proceed in the second part. I hope that you liked my start for this Isis. I really love this image, everything about it, beautiful goddess and everything around. I am not sure yet how to color the snake, but I hope that after a couple of days I will decide about colors for the snake and that we will continue our answers because it's really interesting to think about some problems which you face during your coloring. Thanks for listening and for watching, and I will see you very soon.